and I'm gonna go through my artwork here in a second, that you have like a staple artwork, meaning that like it's your brand. So my podcast is Retail Leadership with Steve Worthy. If you go and look on Apple or Spotify, the original artwork, the very first piece that I put up is myself smiling, and I have, Retail Leadership, with Steve Worthy kind of on the side as well. However, whenever I put out a separate episode, I actually try to create separate artwork for each episode because I think that's important, because the artwork helps tell the story that you're trying to convey to your audience. So while it may be kind of the last part of it, it's actually probably one of the most important parts to get your message across. Because before they click on your podcast to listen, same thing with YouTube. Before people click on something on YouTube, they look at the thumbnail. And if the thumbnail isn't engaging, it doesn't grab them, and it doesn't grab their attention, and it also doesn't resonate with them, then 9 times out of 10, they're not going to click on it. And so that's why I feel that the artwork is such a vital part of it, of your overall process as well. So a couple of things I wanted to get into before we kind of move forward. So if you haven't already, you can go to our YouTube channel and make sure you subscribe to our channel. We are trying to get to 100 subscribers as quickly as possible, so that way we can have a customized name for our YouTube channel. But the other thing is that I am heavily in the process of developing other content, not just live streams, but a lot of shorts and different videos on podcasting and live streaming, and also in a combination that I'm pretty excited about. And so the more you can subscribe and like our content, the more it gets in front of people. So if you haven't already, please just go to our YouTube channel. It's at Podcasters Live, and go ahead and go ahead and subscribe and share it with a fellow podcaster, because I'm sure that the information that I'll be able to provide is going to be of some benefit, not just to you, but also to other people that are in your circle. And if you're also looking at this, if you're looking at this already on YouTube, or if you're actually looking at this, I think I'm on Twitter right now as well. If you want to join our group, our community. And so I know it's a Facebook group, but I am a firm believer in the idea of community. And so we are trying to create a community that's growing actually pretty quickly already. We're kind of close to, like 75, and then we'll be at 100, and we'll be growing. And here's why I think it's so important, because as you go down this podcast journey, you're not alone. There are so many people who have made mistakes and had some successes, that I think it's important that we as a community kind of bond together. And one thing you'll know, if you're brand new to podcasting, you'll realize that the podcast community, we will wrap our arms around each other, and we will make sure that other people are successful. Because at the end of the day, there really isn't any competition other than yourself that you're going after. Because we'll do another episode on this about niching down into your podcast, because as you niche down, you'll realize that the niche is more about you and the message that you want to convey. And that way you're kind of competing against yourself. And there is really any competition in the podcast industry. So I just want to make sure that you join the community. Go ahead and check us out. It's the same thing. It's at Podcasters Live on the Facebook community as well. And then everything that you see here tonight, all the overlays, everything that the ability that I'm going to be able to have to actually connect with you and deliver my message tonight is all brought to you by Ecamm Live. It's a super duper dynamic software program. Initially, when I was thinking about, going this live stream route, I used a couple of different platforms, and I found that Ecamm is the most robust system that's out there. It allows you to truly, truly customize your business, your brand, and also for the experience of everybody that's going to be listening to you as you kind of go through this live stream process. So there will be a link. If you want to try it out for 14 days, there's going to be a link in the descriptions as well. But I'm telling you right now, if you're thinking about doing live stream, check out Ecamm Live, and you won't be disappointed. You won't be disappointed. All right, so let's jump into a couple of things. Hey, if you're out there, if you're listening, if you're live with us right now, say live, hashtag live, or if you're looking at this on the replay, go ahead and say hashtag replay, in the comments or whatever it may be. I'm 100% cool with you jumping in and providing any information or questions or comments or anything that you have as we kind of go through this tonight. And just going to walk you through a couple of things and then I'll let you get on with your day as well. All right. So a couple of things, and I talked a little bit about this. It's actually inside of the content, with the banner and everything that I put out there. So let me just make sure this camera's straight. There we go. A couple of tips real quick. So podcast artwork is one of the most neglected sides of podcasting. Your podcast artwork should be square, right? Make it 3,000 by 3,000 pixel, 1400 by 1400 pixel. It's the maximum for Apple Podcasts. And here's the thing: the majority of people who start a podcast, they go right to Apple because it's the biggest platform so far. However, Spotify is actually catching up on them very rapidly. And we can probably talk about that on another occasion too. Like, where should you put your efforts into Spotify and pushing people to Spotify or pushing people to Apple, right? One of the things that I'm going to go down this rabbit hole for a second. One of the things when we start to think about your podcast, and when we started our podcast, one of the things we didn't think about initially was international. Once I started podcasting, I started to see in my analytics so many different people from the UK, Asia, Australia, New Zealand, Philippines, all over the continent. And you know what kind of phone they use? Android. So when you start to think about your podcast and you start to think about what you want to, where you want to spend your time, and if you want your podcast to be international, then you start to have to think about which platform you're going to kind of devote not all your time to, but a lot of your time to as well. And then make it 72 DPI and use RGB colors. And we could talk about that here in a second too, because I actually have 16 points. I know that sounds like a lot, but we'll go through them pretty quickly. And then of course you can always look at this on the replay. And then what I'm thinking about doing is actually creating a sheet to actually have all of these available for you as well. So if you're listening to this on the replay, I actually just go ahead and say hello. And if not, then let's just go ahead and get started. I apologize. I'm doing something here that's crazy. And that is all right. Here we go. What are you doing? Okay, everything's gone haywire on me for a little bit there. All right, I didn't have all of these open. My apologies. We're gonna go ahead and get this thing sorted. All right, so good deal. So let's go ahead and talk just a little bit about. I'm sorry, I want to put this down here. Where's that at? All right, where are we? All right, there we go. A couple of things about artwork, that we'll kind of talk about, and then I will go onto my Canva, and you can actually see a little bit about. You'll see exactly kind of, some of my content and some of the things that we actually do, which is actually pretty cool. So I'm pretty excited about it. All right, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate. So artwork. So you got to leave some space between the words and the edges of the image. You have to view your artwork when it's an email. I know I'm going to go through these pretty quickly, and then I'll show you exactly kind of what I'm talking about when we actually get to my artwork and what that actually looks like. Don't use more than 2 fonts. So I think I break that rule maybe once or twice. I kind of break that rule a little bit. Don't use silly or hard to read or gimmicky fonts, right? Everybody, the tendency with all the gimmicky fonts is that everybody wants to, they want to stand out, and they want to seem cool, and they want to just like try to make themselves to appear a little different. And I get it. However, what we're trying to do and what you're trying to do as a podcaster is that you're trying to engage and create content for people who are busy, and they have a lot of things going on. They have tons of things on their plate. And so it's important for you to understand that and to take that into consideration. And so the quicker they're able to kind of get through kind of your content and get to the crux of who you are and all of those different things, then that's what typically happens. And so we got to make sure as we kind of go through this process with your artwork that you're not looking at gimmicky stuff. Don't use silly, I think, or hard to read gimmicky fonts. Tell a clever story, right? And I think that's the cool part too. I use a lot of images in my artwork, and you'll see that as we kind of go through that. Limit the number of words you use. That is extremely important. What we tend to see is that a lot of people try to tell everybody about their podcast episode in the artwork, and they add so much stuff to it that it just becomes overwhelming, and it doesn't make any sense. And so one of the things that you truly have to do is that you have to limit the number of words that you use. And then I know the next question is well, how do I actually convey a message? How do I actually kind of get my point across if I can't use a whole bunch of words on my, on my artwork? That's when your show notes kind of come into play. So typically, a lot of people will either click on, it's your show notes and also your title. A lot of times people will actually look at your artwork, they'll look at the title, and then if they like it, a lot of times they'll click on it and they'll try to listen. Or some people who are like, podcast listeners, not the novice podcasters, but people who are really podcast listeners, they'll go to your show notes and they'll actually kind of see what this show is about. So instead of you trying to put everything in your artwork, you have 2 different areas that are super important that you need to fill out. And we'll do another show on titles, and we'll also do another show on show notes, because very similar to your description and your notes in your YouTube channel, your podcast notes and your titles are extremely important, and SEO comes to play in each and every one of them as well. All right. And then 7, stay away from overused images like microphones and headphones. That is huge. Our tendency as podcasters is to go in and create artwork and then boom, put the microphone there just to let everybody know that we're podcasters. And now this is what we do. We got the microphone and all this other stuff. And I get it. I did the same thing. My very first piece of artwork had a mic on it, and I thought it was super cool until I started doing some research and talking to a couple other podcasters. They were like, don't do it. Because here's the thing. People already know that you use a microphone to do this. What they are concerned with is the content. They're concerned with something that's going to do something for them. And if we don't help them up front with identifying that our content could do something for them, they'll go somewhere else. So you have to catch their attention. All right. So let's do this. Before I get to the other 8, let's go through this real quick. So once again, if you have any questions or anything, please don't hesitate to go ahead and ask me, whether it's now or it's actually going to be, um, during a replay as well. All right. So I use Canva for just pretty much everything, when it comes to artwork and making sure that everything is, um, that I'm getting the artwork that I really want, and then I'm creating it. And that way they already have pieces in here that I've actually already been able to use and actually kind of utilize, as well. So as you can see, I'll go to all. As you can see, I have tons and tons and tons. I am not the most organized person in Canva. Maybe I need to have somebody on here to help me kind of get my Canva kind of organized, right? I just have tons and tons, and they all are different, for the most part, and a lot of them have been replicated over time, just because you can see a little bit of the maturation. So hopefully that's really kind of what I wanted to show you. So this is my first podcast. It was called The Worthy Podcast. And as you can see, this is the first piece, one of the first pieces of artwork, that I created or had someone create, that that was, I didn't have a microphone or anything like that. And this was my first podcast, and it's called The Worthy Podcast, where we focused on diversity, leadership, and coaching. Super duper broad. Um, three of the broadest three of the broadest topics that you can ever imagine in podcasting, right? Diversity, leadership, and coaching. I was doing all three and tried to put all three together, and it was just like, whoa. And it was a lot. But that was the first piece that I created. And as you can see, I'm going to, sorry if it's too fast. Apologize if you don't get you seasick. And look at these. These are not, they're not horrible, but they're not great either. Um, you can see what I was trying to do in some of these pieces. I was trying to convey a message and use certain things. And as you can see, as I started to grow a little bit in this whole podcast thing, my design elements started to mature. Like this one, this piece right here, I love this one. I started to mature a little bit in my design elements, because I realized that, I was trying to attract a different audience, and then I wanted to also come off a little bit more professional. And so what we did was we started to use more images in our artwork. And once we started to use the images in our artwork, we also started to use different images in, our posts and different things like that. And we tried to make sure that the post, kind of mirrored some of the artwork as well. So that way there was some continuity between the post and also the artwork. So hopefully you can kind of see what we started doing here. This was probably last fall, last September night, like last January or something along those lines, where we started to kind of mature a little bit, with everything that we were trying to do. And so now what you see is that I have two podcasts. I have Retail Leadership with Steve Worthy, and then of course, Podcasters Live, what we're talking about right now, as well. And so with Retail Leadership with Steve Worthy, I try to keep it very simple, but I use images a lot to kind of convey a story, just like they talked about, right? Try to use images that will convey a story. And here's the story, of course, that we're trying to talk about. It's the 5 levels of leadership. And as you can see, you have somebody that's like here just starting at the one level, and then it kind of progresses. And then I just used a separate image. So this 5 right here is separate from everything else. And I just wanted to use something that from a color standpoint that was going to pop. And then I keep the lettering very simple. I don't go crazy with the letters. I used to go crazy with the letters, not anymore. I keep it very, very simple. So I'm working on, and you can see I got this thing going on too. I'm working on a series for for January, and I think it's right here. And let me. I'm working on a series for that's going to kick off the brand new year, and it is a series of 21 laws of leadership, and they're by John Maxwell's book, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And so my goal is I'm going to be creating 21 podcasts for this to kick off 2022. And what I'm doing right now is I am in the midst of actually creating the artwork for all of those episodes. That way I can already kind of have that done. And the reason I feel like I can do that first for me is because I know the leadership content and I already kind of know what I want to put in there. And so now it's just how do I create artwork that's going to resonate with whatever it is that I'm talking about. So like this one that you see here, this one is it's it's the leadership law, which is the title of the series. Once again, guys, if you have any questions or anything like that, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat. This is the leadership law, and then the law is the law of the lid. And then, as you can see, what I did here was I captured an image of a person that's inside of a jar, and with the lid on, and I just kept it very simple. The image is the image is eye catching, and it also kind of tells a story already, right? It already kind of tells a story without me putting any words in there. So if I took the words out, and just, and took the leadership thing out, that image right there already kind of tells a story. When someone clicks on it, they're kind of like, dude, what's this guy doing in a freaking jar? Like, what's going on, right? And then it's the law of the lid, and it just kind of all flows and it makes sense. And then with the artwork up here at the top with Retail Leadership with Steve Worthy, I have broken that rule of utilizing three different fonts with Retail Leadership with Steve Worthy. Then the leadership law is a different font. This is the same font as Retail Leadership with Steve Worthy. However, you can see in the back, I don't know if you can see that or not. I'm going to move this up. You can see this in the back. You can see I actually have like a watermark. So if I move this out the way, you'll see I have a watermark. And even though people know that this is a podcast, right? I don't know why, but I actually like that. It's a little design element that, it's underneath. It's not overpowering. I could probably actually let me move this back. I could probably make this a little lighter too, so you really can't see it too much. And then I can actually bring this back on top of it. So now, even though it's kind of faint, you still see a little bit of the podcast piece, and it's just an added little touch that I wanted to put in there as well. And then the same thing here. So this is the law of influence, leadership law, the law of influence. And so what I once again was trying to follow some of those rules was to tell a story, about, the artwork. Excuse me, tell a story, about the podcast before they actually even, click on it. So the law of influence, right? You can see that of course, you have the big blue ship, and then it's leading other people. Obviously, uh, the idea is that the blue ship is influencing and directing, the other boats that are behind it. And so those are just some of the thought processes. Please, if you're looking at this on a replay, give me your comments. I'm not going to stay on here too long, because if I'll be very honest with you, I want to catch a couple of my buddies on their live stream, and but I wanted to make sure I jump in here and just kind of help some of you with some thought processes around what you may be thinking about, not even struggling with, but you may be thinking about with your podcast. So before we move into this last element, I do want to talk about these last pieces real quick because I think they're important. And about your artwork, tips for your artwork: make your cover artwork consistent with the rest of your branding. So you can see you can see what we've done here is that our artwork is 100% consistent with our brand, with the W, right? Our W is our staple for everything that we do, and it's just based off of my last name. But the idea is that there's a diamond in there, right? You see that diamond, and the idea is that the diamond is kind of symbolic of the leadership journey, because before a diamond becomes a diamond, it actually has to go through so many different changes: the pressure, the the forming, right, the storming, if you will, just talking about group dynamics, all these different things it has to go through. It's the same thing as a leader until it comes out. But here's the one thing: even though they may say diamonds are flawless, there has been studies that say that they're not 100% flawless. And I think the same thing about a leader, about your leadership journey, right? When you think about your leadership journey, it is you are going to continue to grow. You never stop learning. So there's always different flaws or different things that you have inside of you that you need to continue to grow. So we actually kind of added that element into our design, but it also kind of resonates through everything that we talk about, because we talk about the journey. And just like a diamond has gone through a journey, a leader goes through the same journey as well. So don't be afraid to use your logo, which is what we just did. Use high resolution images, and we can talk about that, quickly as well, because Canva has some really great photos that you can utilize already there. If you have the pro plan, you can utilize a lot of these photos. Actually, a lot of these photos that I've been using are right inside of Canva. Or I have, of course, pixel.com, and then Pixabay. I think it's Pixabay. And we can talk about that too, like on another episode. But I try to make sure that I get really great photos, high resolution photos, and sometimes something that's different than what I see out there with other people that they may be using in some of their artwork, and even in some of their podcast posts on their IG or Facebook accounts or Twitter, things like that. I try to be as original, but stick to our brand as much as possible. Number 12, don't crowd your podcast cover art with too much content. We talked about that initially. Make your cover image adjustable for other mediums, and we'll talk about that in a sec. Avoid explicit or adult only images and language. Avoid words, images that are intellectual property or other brands. Don't be afraid to use your face. So I'll start with that last one. So our very first, actually, I can show it to you. I want to show it to you actually, so that way you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. You'll see it here in a couple of things, right? I'm already kind of using my face and likeness in a couple of different pieces that we've already kind of developed and created. We were doing some stuff on LinkedIn, so I'm using my face and um, in some of the artwork as well. And then our very first, here it is right here. So we have changed this up quite a bit. Oh, I don't like that when it goes up. I don't like when it goes to that level. Oh, you can't see it here. Sorry. So you can see what we've done here is that we have actually, this is a piece of artwork that I use. Um, we actually edited a little bit, and I used for like the very first piece that we have, and for our artwork. And as you can see, this one says a retail leadership U, and our brand company, our big company, is Worthy Retail U. So we were trying around a couple of different things, and didn't kind of like it, and so we kind of ended up on one design element that I can actually show you here shortly as well. But just to let you know that we are following as best as we can, you know, all of those design elements that we have just talked about. Those 16 design elements are in the majority of everything that we talk about. And then you can see the rest of, this isn't all 21, but you can see what we're trying to do here with all the different pieces of artwork, all the different laws that we're talking about, and then how they all kind of fit together and also kind of tell a story, before you even get there, before you even listen to the episode. It's telling yourself, it's telling the story. So you have to make sure that your artwork is telling the story as well. So hopefully you kind of get that. And then one thing I wanted to do, and this is going to be the last piece that we probably do tonight, is that I wanted to go through. Let me see if I can move this over. I can't move that. Oh, yes, I can. There we go. All right. I wanted to go through. I'm going to try to make this bigger for you guys. So as you can see, I do listen to a lot of podcasts already. There we go. So I wanted you to see what a podcast looks like, or podcast artwork looks like in Apple. So these are all of the podcasts that I subscribe to and I listen to every week. Actually, right here, this is my good buddy Robert. So if you start to look at some of these, pieces of artwork, you'll start to see some of the elements that we talked about. Things aren't being crowded. They're using simple fonts. They're not crowding the edges. They're using their likeness. They're using pictures and images and everything. Here's my buddy as well, Carl, with his podcast as well. Dad's Parenting Boldly podcast, great podcast. So these are all the podcasts that I listen to on a weekly basis. My good, I can't call him a good buddy, but my friend. I think we're okay. Tom Buck, with his Enthusiasm Project, that's right there. So Tom's has a great podcast, and then Podcast Junkies. That's one of my goals, is to get on Podcast Junkies. So if you're listening, I would love to be on Podcast Junkies. One of my favorite podcasts is 20,000 Hertz. And it's a podcast about sounds and different things. And what I'll do one day is actually, I think I'll just continue to do what I'm actually doing here, is actually kind of going through a couple of these podcasts, and then also, have you guys start to share maybe some of your favorite podcasts, because I think that's important. If you're not a podcaster, and if you're a podcaster, you're not listening to podcasts, that's a problem. It's a massive problem. You need to be listening to podcasts, if not all the time, I won't say almost all the time. You need to be listening to podcasts, if you're a podcaster. So these are, Pod News, James Critland, love him. But if you look at the artwork, they're all they're really good. Here's my other buddy, Walter Gaynor, with his podcast as well, and Tom and Heather, with their podcast. So you just kind of look and think about your artwork a lot differently than you. Future with Chris Doe, he's amazing. All of these podcasts are just outstanding. And then, of course, as you can see, we do retail leadership. So I listen to a lot of retail podcasts. And where's my podcast? Where's my podcast? There's my buddy. There's my buddy Susie Buttress, with the Casual Border podcast as well. And I love this other one with Tom and Peter, another good podcast. And then young lady who turned me on to everything I do from a video content creation standpoint. I would highly recommend, if you haven't already, subscribe to Diana Glatney's podcast. Amazing, great content, everything she's doing now. But her back catalog is actually really good as well too. And then another Kai Villanueva, she does a really great podcast. I apologize, I'm going down this rabbit hole. So there you go. You can see my artwork right here. Here's retail leadership with Steve Worthy, what we kind of finally landed on. Over smiling probably, but I'm okay. And using my face, and we try to keep it simple. But then, on different platforms, we utilize the different pieces of artwork, like on Spotify, and then a lot of the other smaller podcast hosting places. They allow you to change up your artwork for each episode. Apple doesn't do that. And please, if I'm wrong on that, but I haven't seen them do it on almost every other platform from a podcasting standpoint, you do that. And so then I guess it begs the question, well, why would you do that? I do it because the fact that other people are listening on different platforms other than Apple. So that's why I do it. And then my man, who I've listened to for so long, John Maxwell, on podcast, has his podcast leadership. So there we have it. I hope you were able to get some value out of this tonight. And if you're looking at this on the replay, we went through a couple of things pretty quickly. I could have taken segments of this entire talk and made it into separate episodes. And we probably would do that in the future. But I don't know, there was something inside of me that wanted to jump on and make sure that I connected with all of you and talk to you a little bit about artwork tonight. I hope you are, once again, get some value out of what we're trying to present to you as a community. Podcasters Live is about you as a podcaster, and then also your ability and your thought process is if you want to go live and do live streaming. You do live streaming so that you can share your content to a broader audience, but you also do it so that way you can actually get immediate feedback and connection with your audience. And so we put the two together. For me, I love both. I love podcasting and I love live streaming, and that's exactly what we do. So we try to match those passions with podcasting and live stream, and give you content that's going to be valuable to you along your podcast journey. Because we have to podcast together. Can't podcast alone. We got to do it together in a community as well. So this has been Podcasters Live, talking about artwork. If you are interested in being a guest on the show, please, you can email me at info@podcasterslive.com. You can message me in the group. You can send me a message or leave a comment or something like that also on YouTube. And then also just reach us at podcasterslive.com, our website, and there's a contact form. We are looking to do different ideas with Podcasters Live. We want to feature brand new podcasters who have just started, and they can talk about their podcast and their journey. We're going to be talking to seasoned podcasters. And then, of course, we're going to get very specific on different topics that we're going to be talking about with podcasting and as it relates to your journey and what you're looking to do with your podcast. So you got value out of this. I actually go ahead and make sure if you're on YouTube, subscribe and hit that like button. If you're listening to this on the Facebook and you're not part of our group yet, go ahead and join our group. You're listening to this on Twitter, go for it, rock it out as well. And then we also have, lastly, Buy Me a Coffee. So if you're getting value out of this and you want to help us, support us as we move this engine forward, Podcasters Live, and you want to support us, you can go ahead and buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/podcasterslive. We would truly appreciate the support because we are just starting this. We know that this is going to be something big, and we're not taking that lightly. So any support that you can provide is more than welcome. So have a great night. Remember, we got a podcast together. Have a great night. God bless.